It's more.
to go.
Sí, sí, it's more.
More than, yeah. So this is the way we come today.
Okay, fine. It's okay for me.
All right. So the other it will be up to you because eventually I think that you can distribute yourself. Will all of you that is in the LTO will I invite it first and those for the
Personal management.
yeah. I think that is the say, if you say, you know, you are flexible because eventually there's nothing after the system. Oh, no, no. You haven't prepared anything special. The idea will be woman, when they come and say it's not just the man. Next, in 2 years' time, there'll be the chance to have it. To give us some time to get this out. That's it. No, no. This is why sometimes these 50-50, first of all, some people, the real show is not that. So it's so weird to see four male families and one single male. It's good. It's good. I mean, I always say that I never look at the gender people in the group. I want to know that. Yeah.
But sometimes in the waste management, it happens that there are more women than men, but it's only the few of the conferences.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just see that.
You know, it depends on which sector or new career you look at. For example, in chemistry, there are many women. So in nuclear waste, that is chemistry related, then probably you are more balanced than that in nuclear engineering. But in the master, the university master, we know that there were only 3 women, and at least 20 applications, so 26. So it's like about 30%. More women now. More than I expected. I just saved to cut down my name, but it didn't. Because you know a Spanish name, we get the father's name and the mother's name. And this is American. Whenever you go to the States, you try to find food lines, they can't find that. And they take ages to find how to use this.
There's also something interesting in the interest procedure. There was a list of countries that give the names of my father. Very interesting check.
Good afternoon, everyone. We are glad to have you here. We were discussing before the session that, well, it is a tough competition to have an SMR in parallel to this session. But we are so happy that there is anyone interested in LTO and nuclear waste management. So thank you for being with us. So this session is, as you can read there, on preserving safely the European assets pioneering advances for safe horizons. And the session will be moderated by Miriam Diaz and myself. And the intention is that each of the panelists in here will introduce themselves after a brief introduction of the session. Then we'll shoot some questions that some of them will answer. And what we expect from you guys is that you participate actively and you propose additional questions. I'm sure that LTO is also a quite exciting topic for you, and nuclear waste management as well. Without both of them, we cannot make net zero anything, as we all know. So let me start by myself. My name is Luis Herranz. I've been working in the nuclear safety research for a few years. And now I am leading the nuclear safety research unit in the National Research Center in Spain that is called CIEMAT. I am involved in the secretariat of SNETP, and I'm afraid that this is the reason why I'm helping Miriam to moderate this session.
Hello, everyone, and I'm Miriam. I'm sure you probably have seen me somewhere, but just in case, I'm the engineering manager at the Nuclear Risk Insurers of Spain, and I'm also the vice president of the Spanish Young Generation Network, which is why I'm here. So I think that's all for our presentations. If you have more to see, you can check us on LinkedIn, maybe. And let's introduce the session. We are going to divide the session in the LTO and waste management. So just a few introductory words about long-term operation. Ensuring the long-term operation of the existing nuclear fleet is essential for meeting Europe's decarbonization goals, while maintaining the grid stability, the energy security, and affordability. In this context, European operators and regulators are increasingly aligning on technical, regulatory, and economical frameworks that enable the safe and efficient LTO, even considering potential nuclear power plants operation beyond 60 years. Efforts include enhanced aging management programs, systematic safety upgrades, digital modernization supported by initiatives such as the European Technical Safety Organization Network, or ETSN, the Western European Nuclear Regulation Associations, WENRA, and the Nuclear Safety Regulators Group, NSREG. At the same time, integrating LTO within the national energy strategies must address not only the technical and regulatory readiness, but also the long-term fuel supply, workforce, renewable, and public confidence. This session will explore how Europe is leveraging its technical expertise and regulatory maturity to keep nuclear energy a reliable and low-carbon pillar on the future energy mix with the highest standards of safety, even in the context of long-term operation. Let me draw your attention to the importance given by Euratom through the support of projects that underpin this effort from multiple angles. We have projects like FIND and iWeld, which are developing disruptive instrumentation, control, inspection technologies to improve diagnostics. Meanwhile, we have projects like STRUMAT, DELISA, and MAGIC-RR, focusing on understanding and managing materials aging and structural integrity, Everest, enhanced fluence assessment methodologies for pressure vessels, and other projects like Go Viking and Pastels provide valuable data on our thermal hydraulic phenomena and passive system behavior. In parallel, there are many other projects like APAL, INCEFA that tackle fracture and fatigue issues, refining safety assessments for extended operation. Altogether, these projects of Euratom reflect a strategy and science-based approach to sustaining the safe operation of Europe's nuclear fleet in the decades to come. And now we will talk about nuclear waste.
So coming to nuclear waste management, we all know that the safe, responsibly, and technically robust management of radioactive waste remains a critical enabler for the long-term viability of nuclear energy in Europe. In this context, the Sustainable Nuclear Energy Technology Platform, SNETP, actively supports advanced R&D and strategic among European stakeholders in line with the Nuclear Waste Directive 2011-70 Euratom and the EU's Sustainable Energy Framework. Currently, efforts increasingly focus on the development and deployment of deep geological repositories with initiatives such as the European Joint Programme on Radioactive Waste Management, EURAD, promoting scientific convergence in areas like spent fuel behavior, engineer barrier system performance, and safety case development. Simultaneously, partitioning and transmutation strategies backed by Gen 4 systems are gaining momentum in renewed interest for their potential to reduce radiotoxicity and long-term load of high-level waste. Beyond technical advances, fostering international collaboration and building societal trust are increasingly recognized as key dimensions of successful implementation. Of all these topics you've heard about the first open plenaries, and now what we are going to do is to get in so much technical details with our panelists. This session will walk us through some aspects of nuclear waste management that will highlight what is the present status of the matter in which Europe is at the forefront of sustainable and science-based nuclear waste solution. It is fair to highlight that the Euratom program is playing a major role in supporting some of those areas of research already mentioned in previous sessions and in this one, like PREDIS, Mimosa, Patricia, Fredmans, EURAD, EURAD2, Petrus, CleanThem, among others. An excerpt of which will be displayed on the screens or will be in the proceedings of the conference afterwards. So now, the second round of the session starts by introducing the different panelists, starting from the most related to LTO, and then going to the nuclear waste management. So each of them will introduce themselves and make some statements, and then after that, Miriam and I will shoot some questions, and you'll do the proper thing at the end, okay? So, Thomas, may I ask you to start? Yep.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tomasz Bury. I came from Silesian University of Technology, Faculty of Energy and Environmental Engineering in Gliwice. This is about 300 kilometers south from here. And well, in my scientific work, I mainly deal with nuclear power technologies, especially safety analysis, deterministic safety analysis for nuclear reactor systems. But I also work on exploitation or operation of nuclear reactors, nuclear power plants, as well as fuel cycle, especially fuel burn-up and also back end of the nuclear fuel cycle. But here I'm also representing the DESIRE project, which is aimed to develop a plan for decarbonizing of Polish economy by means of nuclear technologies. And the topics of this panel we were analyzing in our project, especially regarding safety of the spent fuel or in general radioactive waste management. So I hope my experience is not as say outstanding as my colleagues here. So for me, it will be a great lesson to get a new knowledge, new prospects for future activities. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Thomas. Now, please, we go with the first presentation. I think it's, yeah, Joseph. Is it yours? Oh, okay. It's back.
You have to see it.
Yeah, the slides are changing behind you.
Ah, that's the
That's the wonder of technique. So, yeah, thank you all for listening to us. I'm Bram-Paul Jopse from the Netherlands, and I will introduce in a few slides what I'm doing and why I love nuclear, of course. But first of all, I have a sort of question to you all. I'm very happy that indeed these days we are talking about the younger and the older generation. I think I belong to the older generation, and we were educated as people stating that we have to explain others that we cannot live without nuclear. And that's what I'm doing for 20 years now. But I think that's the past. In the future, we now have the question, and that's what we now have, but that's a real challenge. That the people who we have convinced that we cannot do it without nuclear, that they are asking to us, when and how? And I think that's the next step. So we will, as the older generation, hand over to most of you, because you are all the younger generation, that you have the challenge to explain how we get nuclear and when we get new nuclear. I think that's my most important message. I have another small one. I have a question. Who is working in the nuclear sector? Please raise your hand where you're working in nuclear. Ah, nearly everybody. That's a good sign. Who is working at a nuclear power plant? Yeah. Okay. You see, not that many. And I think that's the issue with people. I think there are enough people, and it's like fat, there is enough, but often at the wrong place. So I think there are also people. That's my two messages. The rest what I say you can forget. But let's try to talk a bit about Borsele, EPZ, and the Netherlands. Yes, you see, we are living in the northwest of Europe, a small country, but big ideas and great plans for the future. So, yeah, why are we doing this? That's because we believe in our responsibility. We have a responsibility to next generations, that we have to hand over this world and that they can live as lucky as we live. So that's our responsibility, and that symbolizes the picture I've said to you. And then indeed, okay, what can we do as a company on that part? Yeah, so producing safe, reliable, affordable, CO2 neutral electricity. And what you see is, I think as a company, and I'm happy because we can do that and we have a lot of energy, but what you see when you're talking with competitors or you're talking with people against a certain source of energy, you see often that they are not talking about safety or not talking about affordability. And that's the interesting thing, which is our task. That is all four parts, in fact, are to be balanced in the future for us as well, and what we are doing for a long time. So, and that's what we are doing. Yeah, you see, this is the picture. What you see is what you get. I think this is a picture of the future energy system in at least the whole of Europe. What you see is the nuclear power plant. It's a 500 megawatt pressurized water reactor. Interestingly, it's built in 1972, so you can conclude, when you compare it, for example, to the SMR of Rolls-Royce, which is also a nearly 500 megawatt, that we are operating an SMR for more than 50 years now. So you see, yeah, we have our experience in SMRs, we are experienced in operating PWRs, and you see also in the background, you see the solar fields, and we have a big wind park. And we are working together with another company on a hydrogen plant in the area. So that means renewables, nuclear, and the sort of solution for overcapacity, like as hydrogen and batteries. And in the meantime, and that's because we are a small country, also the waste disposal company, Covra, is also at the site. You see the orange building in the background. There is stored all the nuclear waste of the Netherlands for at least 60 years of operation. And I come back on that because we have had the question whether we can extend the lifetime of the power plant from 60 to 80 years. And even then, we can use that Covra building for the nuclear waste as well. And for the ones who are not that familiar with electricity or energy, we have given the comparison between availability. So you see 485 megawatt power plant is enough for 1.3 million households. And you see, availability of solar and wind is different. But we don't talk about that today. So what are we doing? What are our ambitions? Of course, we want to continue safe, reliable, affordable operation of the existing power plant. We have had a question from the government. Is it thinkable that you will extend the lifetime of that power plant for another 20 years? That's what we are investigating at this moment, which means that we will apply for a license from 60 to 80 years, somewhere half 27 is the target at this moment. Then potentially you know, but otherwise I can tell it you, the government has decided in the Netherlands to build at least 2 big nuclear power plants. And there are even politicians who want to go for 4. So we are now looking at the opportunity, is it feasible to have 2 big nuclear power plants, which means more than 1,000 megawatt, on our Borssele site as well? That's to be investigated. And what we see in the meantime, that's the grid issue. And grid issue is that indeed the grid capacity is not enough for the longer future, which means that we are now looking to industrial sites to combine work on the digital side with potential SMRs on the industrial sites behind the meter. So we are working together with the big industries and think that we can accommodate also SMRs in the Netherlands. And I can talk more and more, but I have spent too much time, I think, so I stop here.
Thank you. So thank you for that word. And now, next presentation, please. Okay, so French long-term operation with Jean-Christophe Houchard.
So, hello everyone, very happy to be with you today. So my name is Jean-Christophe Houchard. I spent 35 years, so I'm not in the LTO program, but almost. I started in the R&D branch, then I moved to the engineering unit at EDF, and I also spent some days and some years also on NPP, so been there. And I'm back in the R&D since 1.5 years, and I'm in charge of the program for nuclear at the EDF R&D. Well, I will speak a little bit about LTO and what is it about LTO when we speak about France. So first, as you know, we have 57 units in France. Mostly, we can divide the NPPs in 4 parts. The first part is the 900 megawatts power plants that was built in the late 70s. So we are quite young compared to my Netherlands colleagues. So maybe you can solve all the LTO problem before I reach it. So I hope also. Then we have also the 1300 megawatts power plant that was built in the mid-80s, and then the N4 units which were built in the mid-90s. So as you can see, LTO is a huge topic for EDF due to the huge, I would say, stakeholder and shareholder that will involve. So this is for the R&D the most important project that we have in the R&D branch. So a very important topic for us. So if I move that, how can we discuss with LTO in EDF? Of course, when we speak about LTO, you have the strategic, I will call the periodic safety review every 10 years. Then we review with the French regulator, is everything is okay, and you try also to set the new standard for safety, because our overriding priority is safety. So every 10 years, what we do is we decide what are the options that we want for the safety and how we can reach them. But as we want to improve the safety every 10 years, sometimes, as Mr. Dubois said from the RSNR in the previous session, it's not enough. You have to launch some R&D program, you have to gather data, you have to do some methods, then the method you have to industrialize them, then to give to the engineering unit, then you have to license them, and then you have some time to do some modification. So as is said, in some specific topics, 10 years is not enough. So what we have to do is to have what we call LTO roadmap discuss with the French regulator to be sure what is expected for us, how we can anticipate on the NDO branch all the topics that need to be examined and what are the data that need to be gathered. And this is important to have, I would say, two legs for the LTO. This is the classical, I would say, periodic safety review, and also a LTO roadmap to be discussed with, to be in time, to be sure that we can, I would say, operate our NPPs up to 60 and maybe up to 80, as it is a bit said. So for R&D, what are the main topics that we are dealing with? The main topic that we are dealing with is, of course, what we call the non-reversible component without the RPV, also what we call the containment building, and also the biological shield. What is the biological shield is what is supporting the RPV in the reactor building. This is an important topic. It's not very often discussed, but we have to take care because it's not transferable. What we have to also to discuss is what we call difficult to replace components, such as cables, such as internals, and also such as the elbows are close to the RPV. So what we do in the R&D department is we work on these different methods in order to give for the engineering unit and also for the regulator all the different data and the different methods they need to ensure that we can operate our NPPs in a safely manner. I will not go further because I think that we have this question and we'll answer this.
Thank you. Thank you. I will go to next.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Christophe Bruggeman. I'm sitting here with two hats, so you'll see that the presentation also is in two parts. First of all, I'm the Deputy Director General of CKCN, Belgian Nuclear Research Center. And now I'm going to make also all the people talking about LTO a bit jealous, in the sense that we have a lot of infrastructure on our site, and we realize as a research center, of course, that this infrastructure is really important to perform our research, and we, as a research center, we also try to pioneer and advance innovation in nuclear. And for that, we rely on a lot of facilities. And our oldest one dates already from 1956. So that's a real LTO for you, almost 70 years. It's the BR1, which we also use for training and education, for example, also for the operators in Borselen. The BR2, which is really our workhorse, dates from 1961, first criticality. Again, we're preparing the 10-year safety review until 2036 now. It's a real material test reactor, but we also use it for the production of medical radioisotopes. We produce about 25 to 30% of the world's needs in radioisotopes. But I'm also going to highlight here our Hades underground lab. That's also a nuclear installation in LTO because it's 45 years old. And it's been also used to pioneer, let's say, the R&D and feasibility into deep geological storage in a deep clay formation. Apart from that, maintaining these infrastructures is already a challenge, but of course, as a research center, you also have to look at the future. So we're having a really big investment program, and you can see all names of buildings. I don't want to go into detail, but just to show that we have a clear vision until 2040, which type of facilities we want to build, how we can get there. And for us, this is really also a challenge in the sense that we need to get the necessary investments and interests from our government and, of course, from other actors in the field for this. Second, I'm sitting here also as one of the chief scientific officers of EURAD, the European Partnership. Luis Enrique already mentioned this. This is the biggest endeavor in European context on radioactive waste management. And I'm really proud also to be following this, and already for many years. And Louise is also here in the room. She's the coordinator of this magnificent partnership. What is it about? It combines, in fact, two different programs or projects, the EURAD-1 and PREDIS, into one joint strategic program which covers radioactive waste management for cradle to grave, brings together and complements the EU member state programs in order to deliver cutting-edge science and to also make sure that the wealth of knowledge and expertise which is here, and you've heard in the previous session, or for example, also the CEO of Posiva talk about the fact that they're really starting operations of their first TGR in the next years to come. And we want also to spread this knowledge to all member states so that the competences and the capacities are being built up across Europe. So at the moment, this joint partnership consists of more than 140 different organizations divided into 3 different actor groups. So we have different people from different backgrounds working together, the waste management organizations, research organizations, but also, and that's really interesting, the people representing also the regulator side, technical support organizations, but also regulators are coming now together within EURAD, and together we develop one joint program it's a challenge to do that, but it's also very learning and interesting to do that. Okay, I'll leave it at that, and we'll come back during the questions, I think.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. I'm very happy to be here on the behalf of the OECD NEA. I think I might be the baby here because I have only 20 years of experience, which I passionately enjoyed in the radioactive waste management world. I spent more than half of my career at ANDRA, the French waste management organization, supporting the development of disposal solutions for the French radioactive waste and spent fuel. And over the past 4 years, I've been working at the OECD NEA, and I will introduce you, for those who do not know, the OECD NEA, an international organization that gathers 34 member countries, embarking 82% of the world nuclear fleet, so very experienced countries. It's important to highlight that the European Commission is a full member of the OECD and can attend all of the working groups and expert groups, and the IAEA is an observer. This co-participation is very important to avoid the burden of duplicating the work in those different international organizations that addresses the same challenges. So just 2 slides to present the NEA. Under the steering committee, where governmental representative seats and do decide on the program of work, 8 committees are working on different topics, and I will focus on the Radioactive Waste Management Committee and the Committee on Decommissioning and Legacy Management, which are administrated by my division, the Radioactive Waste Management Division. Basically, the NEA supports the development of strategic policies, identified good practices, and managing both radioactive waste and nuclear decommissioning and management of legacy facilities from different perspectives. The regulatory aspects, the legal issues, the environmental factors, the operational safety of disposal facilities or decommissioning activities. The societal factors, the stakeholders are very important, and the young generation as well, and the economical factors. I'm not going to enter into detail into this slide and the next one, but it provides you with an overview of the different expert groups and working groups focusing on specifics of the back-end management of the spent fuel and radioactive waste, particularly the safety case, the analysis and R&D on the different host rocks for different DGRs, the regulator-implementer dialogue, which is a very important topic and aspect with regard to the public, but also in planning long-term licensing projects of DGRs, which take more than several decades. Information data and knowledge management, passing on the knowledge for the next generation, since the repositories or disposal facilities will be operated for decades and decades. The robotics and remote systems, the regulatory challenges, and social engagements with the forum on stakeholder confidence. For the Committee on the Decommissioning and Nuclear Installation and Legacy Management, the same type of activities are addressed, the regulatory challenges, especially with the introduction of innovative techniques for decommissioning, the use of AI, for example, which are developed much faster than the regulation is updated or upgraded itself, the social engagement, the management and organizational aspects. The costing aspects, the NEA has developed the international structure for decommissioning and legacy management benchmarking, a very important document that can be used and compares the different costs for different decommissioning projects around the world. The decision-making process for the complex site, the legacy with complex site, when the knowledge is lost, when information is missing, and of course, in cooperation with the RWMC, information data management and the robotics. So, yeah, basically the NEA is an international organization supporting the member countries, interacting a lot with the European Commission, EURAD particularly, and we appreciate and thank the EURAD colleges and PMOs to facilitate the exchanges. And if you have any questions later, I think during the panel session, we can discuss more.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Markéta Dohnálková, and I am from the Czech Republic. My background, it's not nuclear engineering. I must say that I'm a tunnel engineer, which I usually say it's the perfect combination for the preparing of the deep geologic repository because it can combine the civil engineering and the geologist, which are the main points and main focus in the preparing of the deep geologic repository. Today I am here because I am representing the Czech Republic and I would like to tell you something about our Czech National Radioactive Waste Disposal Program. In the Czech Republic, it's a SURO, like our Czech organization, state organization, which is responsible for the safe radioactive waste disposal, for all of our radioactive waste, which were produced in the Czech Republic. Czech Republic is a small country in the middle of Europe, but we have 2 nuclear power plants, and we would like to, in the future, build 4 new nuclear units, and also in the future plans of the Czech Republic, it's a building of maybe 6 small modular reactors. And that's why we are responsible for all of the safe management and preparing of the final disposal for radioactive waste and spent nuclear fuel. Our main goal now is preparing the deep geological repository project, which should be in operation in the Czech Republic in 2050. Our main focus is now for the research and development of the technical solution for the future repository, which includes long-term safety assessment and also a lot of in-situ testing and laboratory testing. And that's why we have in operation our special underground research facility Bukov, which is the unique underground laboratory, 500 meters deep, which can support our technical and scientific studies. Our current priority in the Czech Republic, including the DGR, it's a site selection process. We are now in the middle of the site selection process, and we should have our final site in 2030. But we are not only preparing the geological repository in our country, but we have a good experience with safety operation of radioactive waste repositories for decades. in the Czech Republic, we have 3 near-surface repositories for low and intermediate level waste. For example, the Richard repository, it's in operation since 1964. It means that Richard repository has been in safe operation for over 60 years and continues to meet our national capacity needs. We have also another repository, Dukovany, for example, which is close to our nuclear power plant, Dukovany, which is mainly for the nuclear power plants, and it's in operation since 1995. And also we have a Bratrství repository for waste with natural radionuclides. All facilities are operated in compliance with international safety standards and under our regulatory oversight. But today I'm not here only like a representative of the Czech Republic, but also like a representative of international cooperation. Of IGDTP. IGDTP, it's an international technological platform for implementing geological disposal, and I'm honored to currently serve as a chair for next 2 years and representing the Czech program. IGDTP, it's a European technological platform for implementing a safe solution and responsible solution for the disposal of spent nuclear fuel. And this platform brings together over than 140 organizations from all over the world. It means mainly the waste management organizations, technical support organizations, and also the research entities. And these are from more than 26 countries. The platform is steered by the executive group composed of 11 countries from Europe. And our key goals of IGDTP, it's supporting the national programs in achieving the safe and acceptable solution for the future deep geological repository, and also the transferring the knowledge and transfer the knowledge across the generations and across the countries, and coordinate and support the research and development, and also the demonstration for the safety radioactive waste disposal across the Europe, including, for example, a project like EURADWASTE. And we are here also for the foster the public and stakeholder trust, because we are encouraging open and transparent communication with the safe disposal. And for the end of my presentation, let me say that geological disposal, it's not only the technical challenge, but it's a shared responsibility across our generations and borders. Thank you.
Okay, so now we have prepared some questions, and after that we will give the mic to the people in the room. So first question, just to kind of like join LTO and waste, what are the specific impacts of long-term operation in the back-end cycle?
Okay, that's an interesting question, because I don't know how familiar you are with the fuel cycle, but what we do in the Netherlands is we are using the technique of reprocessing our fuel, which means that we split off the used uranium from the used fuel and the plutonium from the fuel, and that we use that as reprocessed uranium fuel and as MOX fuel. So we start with the first cycle, natural uranium. Then we transport the assemblies towards France. There it will be reprocessed, and we will reuse the uranium and the plutonium as MOX and reprocessed uranium fuel. That's the technique we are using for a lot of years. The advantage of that technique is, of course, less use of natural resources. The other advantage is that you have a much smaller waste volume. We have now had what I already told, the question from the government, do you want to continue, or is it feasible to continue with operation of the plant for another 20 years? Then we have to re-evaluate the back-end cycle as well. So that's what we are doing at this moment. Do we continue with reprocessing, Or do we switch to direct disposal, which is more common in most of the countries, which means then you take off your fuel from the reactor vessel and you put it in a cask and you store it at a safe place and put it after several years in the deep geological disposal. That's what we are evaluating now. And interestingly, I cannot say what the outcome will be, but when you make it a very easy decision, or not easy, but when you simplify a bit the discussion or the risk, then in fact it's the evaluation between creating smaller waste volumes and less use of natural resources, or at the other side, and I think that's interesting now, dependency on other countries. And I think that's exactly when we are using the technique of reprocessing, we have to transport via countries. We are using several countries where we are producing or where they are reprocessing the fuel. We are blending in other countries the reprocessed uranium with other uranium. So yeah, there is a lot of, governmental discussions with countries. You have to have contract between countries. And in the current world, that's difficult. So in fact, to simplify it a bit, that's the evaluation we're making. And to be honest, I don't know the outcome. Of course, there is also a financial aspect on it, but I think the most interesting two things are indeed the risks and the geopolitical situation.
Yeah, from my perspective, if you look at how you develop a waste management program, you start from the inventory that you will have in your country after X number of years of operation of your nuclear facilities, including the decommissioning. And you start from what type of waste do I have there and what are the volumes. So of course, if you move towards LTO, the volumes change. There will be more years of operational waste that are adding to the inventory, but not necessarily the types are changing, except of course if you make such decisions as you are doing right now. That being said, everything depends also a bit on what phase you are in implementing these different solutions. We are not yet far advanced, for example, in implementing deep geological repositories. So, of course, there is still room to maneuver a bit, while for example, for low and intermediate level waste, where you're going towards surface-based solutions, a lot of facilities are already been in place and operating and are also licensed for a certain volume. So you always have to see, okay, what does it mean, and do I also need to adapt maybe my waste management strategies in order not to jeopardize the filling of these surface repositories, because you have to think of these also as a kind of valuable resource. It takes a lot of time to implement such a solution and such repositories. So you also have to think, okay, can I reduce maybe, if I go to LTO, also the amount of waste that I'm producing somehow? Again, that relates a bit to legislation as well, as some countries allow more easily also the conditional release of materials from a nuclear facility, while others are more strict. There is one thing where LTO might impact, but it's really marginal, and that's just the fact that, for example, in activation of materials, as materials see more neutrons, there is more activation, so there could be a little impact, but it's really a marginal impact, I would say, in terms of the switching or between types or something like that. And also, just to give the final perception on this a bit, at least in Belgium, if you look at where the waste is coming from, about 50% of our low and intermediate waste come from operations and 50% from decommissioning. So the decommissioning itself, it's not going to change the amount of waste that's going to be produced. Okay.
Well, we don't have such experience regarding the power nuclear reactors in Poland. However, we have the research reactor, Maria, near Warsaw, about 30 kilometers from here. And well, we are going to face the problem of, let's say, running out of space for storage of medium level and low level waste, because the spent fuel is, well, reprocessed, or maybe not reprocessed, is utilized according to international agreements. But there is another problem. Well, definitely the long-term operation or extending the operation of a nuclear power plant will, will bring more and more radio waste, and we need to face it. In Poland, there is a problem with public acceptance of prolonging the operation of existing storage facility, and of course, building new facilities. Another problem, I think, may be about aging of this infrastructure for storage of radio waste. So it also should be taken into account. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we switch to nuclear waste management, and I was reading the next question, and I thought that very likely I was really happy if some of the politicians living next to Miriam or myself hear the answers. So the question goes like this: what are the major challenges caused by an early nuclear shutdown in terms of nuclear waste management?
Thank you. It's a very important question. It's somehow linked to some of the answers that were provided just before for the previous questions. And early shutdowns of nuclear power plant have many consequences that have been observed around the world, at least by the NEA member countries. Basically, we know that the decommissioning activities produce large amounts of low-level waste and very low-level waste. So, as a consequence, one of many challenges arise from that. For example, the interim storage facilities, they need to be built. Transportation services need to be provided as well. Characterization services and packaging services must be put in place, and those somehow need some preparedness. And the early shutdown is a challenge with regard to that. It can leave the waste stranded on site if those are not available, or if at the national level repositories are not available, are not operated, and they take, as I mentioned earlier, decades to be commissioned, licensed and commissioned. There may be some funding shortfalls because the production of electricity, the operation of nuclear power plant finances the back-end management, the radioactive waste disposal facilities developments. There might be some policy and regulatory gaps as well, which have not in terms of pace and development, may have not matched the sudden shutdown of power plants and the decommissioning activities. But fortunately, measures are being taken by many countries around the world. And the member countries under the RWMC and CDLM that I presented earlier have shared their lessons learned, and I'm going to try to provide you the best and realistic feedback with the highest fidelity. Many countries now are investing in centralized interim facilities, and we have seen that in the US, as well Sweden, to consolidate and better manage this waste. Dry cast technologies are being upgraded for extended period of storages as well, and we see that from many private companies around the world. We have seen also accelerated repository development programs, and we have seen earlier that Finland has achieved successfully with the license and operation construction of their DGR, which is the most challenging category of waste. We see also arising flexible decommissioning strategies, and this is an important aspect. Strategies like delayed dismantling versus immediate dismantling allow radioactive decay on site and optimization of the inventory that was mentioned earlier. Immediate dismantling is pursued, though feasible to expedite site cleanup and waste removal is observed also around the world. We see also a lot of international cooperation when such events arise. Organizations like the NEA, for example, support the knowledge sharing, co-development of decommissioning cost estimation methodologies, harmonized policies, which is very important. Multinational storage or multinational repositories, ideas are emerging, and some working groups are discussing the challenges, legal challenges, financial liabilities, and the scientific challenges as well, considering various nature and characteristics of waste might be disposed of. And we see also financial mechanism reforms around the world. So government and utilities are now assessing the financial provisions for decommissioning and waste management and ensure as much as possible that these funds are secure in case of early shutdown.
Does anyone raise up?
Okay, yeah, very good indeed. General framework of how it works. Yeah. Everything depends a bit indeed how this early shutdown is organized or maybe non-organized in some cases. I can tell of a story that happened in Belgium. It's not related to a power plant, but it was a nuclear facility producing medical radioisotopes. And that facility went bankrupt. And everyone was gone from one day to the other. And in Belgium, what happens then is that our waste management organization got the responsibility to completely dismantle, decommissioning this facility. But there was no memory whatsoever on this site. They really had to start from zero, trying to guess what type of materials, what are the contamination, what happened in this facility. And so the preservation of memory during operation in view of decommissioning, I think, is something that is really crucial also in getting it working already during the operational lifetime of a facility. Because, and that's the second thing as well, operating facility is something completely different than decommissioning in a facility. In operation, everything relies on the nuclear safety. While in decommissioning, in fact, the first thing that you try to do is get the highest radioactive material out of there, and then it turns into more an industrial safety project. Of course, there is nuclear materials, but the way you handle everything related to the logistics, the materials indeed, and then the fact that you can have evacuation routes of these materials from your site is really crucial. So in that sense, yes, there are quite a lot of challenges if some of this happens. Of course, the techniques itself, everything that you can employ are there. Decommissioning is now something that is industrially mature compared to a couple of years ago. So in that sense, yes, everything is out there, but yeah, it's more organizing yourself and organizing as a country in terms of dealing with such situation. That is the most challenging task.
Okay, thank you. And moving on for early nuclear shutdown to the next generation, do you think waste management strategies are going to be influenced by the development on generation 4 reactors? And do we really need to consider and anticipate them?
What I didn't tell is that we are also working on together with the company on development molten salt reactors, and then I think I make it a bit broader, because when we're also talking with developers of SMRs, and they're all questioning to us, what does that mean using MOX fuel, for example? So knowing that there is MOX fuel is important for the design and for the developers of SMRs. I think that's an important thing. On the other hand, and the Gen 4, I don't see that big differences in using the same fuel as we are using now. What is important, that we have the opportunity to use reprocessed uranium and to use plutonium as a fuel. And especially when you're looking at the development of molten salt, the first steps are indeed using reprocessed uranium and plutonium in molten salt reactors, which also, the molten salt has also the opportunity to give a sort of to make a sort of battery system, because you can store energy in the salt, which means also an opportunity for flexibility in your operation. So that's an advantage. So I think it can have a lot of impact, but in general, so I think for the long future we are using the same fuel as we are using now in the nuclear sector, except for the moment that we can use thorium as fuel, because that will be a huge development and a huge step forward. But okay, that's always a promising solution, I would say.
Sorry to be talking again. I tend to disagree with my colleague. I think Gen 4 is really something different than what we know now. That being said, I think even in the SMRs, what we will see first coming onto the market, if the concept of SMR kicks in, are anyway light water-based type of SMR. So we have some time yet before we're dealing with Gen 4. But that being said, yes, Gen 4 is something completely different. We're looking at different type of materials, coolants, that we don't know how to deal with, that we also don't know how current, if they're compatible with current waste management strategies and repository solutions. How to dismantle such facilities is also something completely different. That's also related a bit to the concept of SMR itself. If you're building SMRs in remote locations, in industrial sites, in different units that are controlled by one operational center, for example, it poses a lot of different and interesting challenges and opportunities for the sector. But I think what we've learned from operating already more than 40 years of most light water reactors in Europe, we started operating them without having really in mind what the back end could be. The start of looking into the RD&D and geological disposal facilities started mid-70s, early 80s with the support also of the Euratom program. And we've learned a lot since then. And I think we can use also this knowledge that we have acquired over the decades to look at this new type of reactors and see how we can tackle already the challenges from the start. If we can do what is called also decommissioning by design, if we can look at waste minimization strategies and things like that, it's going really to help us a lot. That being said, I think there will be new fuels. There will be multi-reprocessing needs for Gen 4 technologies, something that we don't know how to do yet, because what Gen 4 ultimately allows is the closing of the fuel cycle. That means using all of our precious resources to the maximum extent and minimizing also the amount of high-level waste. So there will be I consider it more a paradigm shift for nuclear than anything else. And the good thing is we're already looking into that. One of the strategic studies within EURAD aims also to look into what are wastes that are coming from SMRs and what does the community need also to do and prioritize to look into this.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Christophe is very much appreciated at the NEA. It's our most preferred Belgian representative in the RWMC committee and the CDLM, and we thank you for your endeavors. And you totally identified the main challenges indeed. I would like to echo to what you said, to echo NEA Director General Bill Magood during the opening session this morning, where he mentioned the new NEA joint project called WIZARD, the Waste Integration for Small and Advanced Reactor Design. including as membership waste management organizations, utilities, developing various SMR designs to try to identify and study the features of the spent fuel and the waste streams, their characteristics and inventories, and see if they can be disposed of and placed in current solutions that are being developed for the current fleet around the world. And thank you for giving me this opportunity. And I would like to mention also that EURAD, but I'm not the most appropriate person to say that there is a work package in EURAD too, tackling also this very big challenge. So I'm not sure if someone can develop on that.
Okay. So, Luis, do you want to say something?
We do not have the work package leader here, so I'm not going to say that much, but just like I'm going to take the question and refer that to the work package leader because I'm not the best person to discuss that, but yeah.
Anyway, you are starting to work on that, right?
Yeah. So that's the only thing we can say.
So back to the long-term operation, I was reading and I realized that we've been a bit ambitious in this question because there is 3 questions in one. The first one is, which major safety adaptations are being adopted in MPPs going to LTO? Does LTO change regulatory requirements? And last one, what MPP infrastructures need to get upgraded, if any, as a sine qua non condition?
So I will try to answer these 3 questions. Maybe what we can say, if can we have lifetime exploitation in a safely manner? I think that the way to take this question is this way. What I would like first to emphasize is we are in the nuclear industry, and sometimes we don't really face the fact that we share a lot of experience in nuclear industry. When you look to automobile, when you look to other industry, they do not share so much experiences. We share a lot of experiences. And what we do at EDF to answer these questions, that we held a workshop in September 2023, and we invited more than 200 people from all over the world to discuss these topics. Can we operate our NPPs all over the world in a safely manners? And there was a lot of discussion about all the different components of the different structures or the different systems that are being implemented in nuclear PPPs. And different people coming from different organizations, from operators, for academics, for scientific organization also. And what we conclude at the end, all the 200 people, that there is no technical issue that will lead to a generic shutdown of a light water reactor. I think it's important to say this, that there is no technical issue that would lead to a generic shutdown of the... So that means that light water reactor, I would say, are resilient reactor, are safe reactor, and we can operate them up to this. So it's the first question that we arrive in September 23. The second one I want to share also with this, because it was brought by a Japanese expert that say that we'll also must to take into account the public opinion when we speak about LTO. And he say about, sorry for my Japanese, he speak about motomai. We can be translate as, do not waste your assets, or we can say that take the best of what you have. It say that we must, when we have NPPs, I think it's a very variable asset, okay, can we get used to it and not to waste it? And you see LTO is about this. And what also wanting to mention that as there was no technical issue, that doesn't mean that sometimes for some NPPs, because there is a typical defect and you have to close down, I think there is no generic technical issue that would let them. What we also done, we have also we present in EDF the way, the roadmap that we need to go to the LTO up to 60, up to 80. So we present it for the RPV, for the internals, for the commitment building. What I really strongly believe that we need to acquire more data, more knowledge, more things to be sure that we can operate very safely in the simulator. But I think that for doing this, we have to have a strong relationship with the regulators all over Europe to see what is expected from the regulators, what is expected from the operators, and how can we deal with this. As I present in my slides, there is the periodic safety review. I think 10 years is not sufficient to tackle some difficulties. So to have a clear roadmap more than 20 years, I think it's a good way to deal with this. And I think we can operate our MPPs up to 60, 80 without any difficulties. We continue to acquire knowledge and data about this.
Okay, so let me add that those 3 questions, first of all, we can handle some technical issues regarding the long-term operation. And as an example, let me give digitalization of the instrumentation and control. We are talking about power plants which are operating for decades, so they are mostly rely on analog system. Of course, during those years in the past, we observed some digitalization. However, in the future, this digitalization is crucial. Additional problem, or maybe not problem, is the monitoring system of all vital parameters of this power station, the surveillance of, for example, containment, reactor pressure vessel as to the most important elements in power plant. And of course, we can also, or not can, we need to address some structure upgrades in, let's say, cables, switchgear, and cooling systems, and so on. So all those technical issues, I think we can address, and we can, upgrade the power station for long-term operation. But the other side is some legal aspects. Decades ago, there were quite different requirements regarding preparing for safety reports. Today, we need to take into account some new aspects. For example, weather conditions, which are going worse and worse sometime. We should also take into account the technological development and new knowledge we got from academia, from research institutions. So we need to utilize all those new tools which are available for us. However, we need to meet the requirements, the actual requirements from the legislations, from the law. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. And next question. Marketa, you are the only one who hasn't talked yet, so let me ask you, what are the major advances in radioactive waste management and final disposal, and how do tools like artificial intelligence, digitalization support the development of deep geological repositories?
It's a nice question. Thank you for that. In the recent years, we have seen a big progress in the new technologies, and especially in AIs, and we are also using it in the preparation of the deep geological repository. For example, really helpful for us, it's a structured data system which can help us with knowledge management and the data transfer, not over the decades, but over the generation, because in a DGR project, which is the really a long-lived project, it's the data transfer a really crucial topic. We can see the digitalization also and the using of this in the digital twins of the future repository, which can help us now with the better designing of the project. But in the future, in the operation, will be the digital twin the most helpful thing which we can imagine, and that's why we should really prepare this solution. And the most important, which I can see now, it's a digital safety case, because digital safety case, it's a future for the future safety of the deep geological repository. We have seen from another countries like Finland and Switzerland that the safety case can be for thousands of pages. And if we will have this structured data system and digital safety case, it can help us, but also our future generation, which will work with these digital tools. And also, when we are talking about the new technologies, we should also think about the robotics and automatization, which will be really helpful during the operation of the future repository. And also, it can help us with the faster of the construction time of the repository, and also we can use it in the future in the monitoring, because it will be also the long-term issue. So that's it.
Thank you. Christoph, you or Sufyan, you want to add something?
Thank you. Yes, I can only confirm this, and I think it's important, and I can't stress this enough, that the radioactive waste management community has really made big steps forward in the last 5-10 years, after a period of more than 40 years of research and looking into the technological feasibility of a DGR, a deep geological repository. We are now in the phase where several countries have submitted a license for such a DGR. Finland is starting operations. Sweden has given the green light, has been given the green light for construction. France submitted the construction license, and Switzerland also submitted a license file for selecting the site. So, I mean, these are real advances forward, and you can even think that with all these 4 cases, you have developed a good framework how to do this, how to go for a license for such a DGR. You can even imagine that, for example, in the future, other countries use a large language model like ChatGPT, given their specific site information, and say, well, give me the first version of my own license application based on this. Why not? Digital revolution is there. We should use it. We should use it creatively. And instead of spending thousands and thousands of hours writing documents, we can use what is already out there. I think there is also a challenge there in the sense that while the focus of the community has been really on R&D in the past and technological feasibility, we're starting now really the operation also of such facilities, which means that there are different challenges. These are really big projects. The facilities themselves needs to be operational for decades, until up to 100 years. For an underground construction 400 to 500 meters deep, that is not really evident. So there needs to be other, there are going to be other needs when we come to operation and construction of these facilities compared to the decades before. And also, so we also need to make the switch as a community towards this type of needs. I think a last evolution that I see is that we're also looking how to make nuclear more durable. There is all around us this needs going towards circularity, to not waste resources, to try to reuse and recycle materials. We've been very much focused on there is waste and we need to get a solution for this waste. I think there are opportunities to both increase durability in terms of can we reuse, recycle some of these materials in other nuclear applications, or even outside of nuclear, for example, if safety allows for it. But also the solutions that we are using now, for example, cement is a really widespread material that we are using in radioactive waste management. We all know that it's not a CO2 neutral material. Can we switch to other type of materials that are more durable, but still provide the same safety aspects as ordinary cements? And also there, I think within the EURAD program, there are several work packages that are really tackling this, including also the digitalization. So I'm also really happy to see that these general trends are reflected in the EURAD work program.
Thank you very much. It is very difficult to speak after two brilliant and knowledgeable individuals answering this question. The NEA is working a lot on these topics, and you said many things, Marketa and Christophe, indeed. One little, I would say, comment from the NEA, which has established the concept of safety case in 1991. For your information, the digital safety case is not a widely acknowledged definition around the world. So it's not a PDF file on a computer that you can search. It's more an object that that allows to look at the impacts of all the parameters demonstrating the safety of a DGR. When you shift or modify slightly one parameter, it may have heavy consequences on the safety demonstration. And currently, the difficulty for the regulators and even the waste management organizations is to identify the impacts and the uncertainties associated with those changes, because the R&D is supported the development and the acquisition of knowledge may need to iterate and upgrade the safety case. I just wanted to provide practical examples provided by the NEA member countries for which AI can be used and is used now for safety case supports to DGRs. For example, our colleagues from UK, the NNL, National Laboratories, are using an AI-assisted decision-making system with computer vision to grasp and or cut radioactive waste, and this is a major breakthrough. Autonomous vehicles have been developed and tested to transport spent fuel casks by Sweden, SKB, and France, Andra, for their DGR projects. Nagra, and you mentioned our Swiss colleagues, they're working, and Marketa mentioned also, they're working with a Swiss university to develop a customized AI-based chat, which is multilingual. You know, in Switzerland, there are 3 official languages, so it might be important that these tools are multilingual and they can translate answer to different languages. And this tool, this chatbot, is used to make inquiries in the safety case and will be used first by the regulator with regard to the current general license application that has been submitted by Nagra recently. Our Belgian colleague, Ondraf Nairas, the waste management organization, presented a proof of concept work to use AI to characterize the content of waste packages based on photographs of the content. So this is a major breakthrough as well, technological breakthrough, and an example for future innovative activities.
Well, just for you to know, we are like half an hour to the end. We've got just half of the question we have, but Miriam and I know that one of the reasons for you to come here is to ask questions to experts. So, does anyone have any question at this time? Wow, this is great. Let me start by the young generation.
Okay, thank you, Luis Enrique. Pau Aragon from the Joint Research Center. I will formulate my question based on a specific case, but I think it can be applicable to others. So, I come from Spain, and in Spain we are now, there's the decision to close all the nuclear power plants, but there's an ongoing debate that from the young generation we try to foster. And in particular, there's the Almaraz power plant, which is nearly 40 years old. And when we talk to the general public, we always say there's another power plant, which is a twin of this one in the United States, North Anna, that has been granted a license to operate until 80 years old. And then the public is like, okay, let's do it. And it's convincing for them. I know it's not that easy, but my question is, from the regulatory point of view, do you think a national regulator will ever be able to benefit from the assessment of another regulator in these cases? Is this something that can happen?
I will try to take the question. I think that as it was present yesterday in the youth generation session, they say you have different laws. You have the international laws, for example, the Euratom Treaty, that you have to respect whatever it is. This is high standard safety. This is high safety standard. Then you have European directive. Then you have specific law from each country, and when you go lower, then you got more specific question, more specific regulation. So the deeper you get in the legislation scale, the more restrictive you are. So I think that for the moment, I don't know the Spain law compared to the US law, but I think there is some difference, and I don't see in the near future how we can, I say, adjust the US laws with the Spain law. So I don't see it in the next future. But I think that whatever happens, what is very, very important is that the higher safety standards are respected in Spain, in the US, whatever it is. And I think that in North Anna, compared to those twin NPPs, this is the case. This is the case.
No? Can I maybe just begin to the question? So there has been a lot of debate about, let's say, harmonization of rules within Europe the last years, especially in the context of SMRs. But it applies to other questions, to other things as well, of course. Going really to a harmonized European landscape or European regulations, I think that is something we can only dream of, but will not happen, especially, I think, not in the first decades. Of course, you also have organizations like ENSREG, where regulators come together and talk and discuss about different topics, including LTO, including SMRs, and where also regulators can choose to work together and learn from each other. So learning from each other, yes, and we should facilitate this, but going towards a real, harmonized regulation, let's say, where you just plug and play, and if it's done in this country, yes, then it automatically gets done in another country. There, I don't think we will get there.
So, my name is Abhishek Mishra from Galson Sciences Limited. So my question is a mix to John and Paul, in a way, that you guys talked about extension or new build. That was my thought. And what's better if we think maintenance could be 2 different points, maintenance could be hard, who's doing the maintenance, or do we risk it for another 20 years, or we build something for another 60 years? So which one option do you think was much better? Because I had different kind of opinions from both of you. So what's your thought on it?
Can you, because it was very noisy, so I missed the sense of your question. Sorry for that.
Sorry. What I meant was that extension or new build, where you were talking about extension, you mentioned that there are different methods for maintenance, right? So who's doing the maintenance, that's a risk. And I'm not saying that accident happens, but in LTO, at least I would be thinking, if I was thinking that, okay, if I've extended it, it has higher risk of accident compared to a completely new build site. Finances would be a different picture, but my question is, what's your choice, extension or new build? Like,
that's a good question. We are, in general, we say we don't have the opportunity to make a choice because we need and. So that's the first. But given your question on safety, I think what I see there is not a big difference because, for example, at this moment, our license is valid till the 1st of January 2034, which means the end of December 2033, we are still a safe operating power plant. We even have a covenant with the government in which we have to prove that we belong to the 25% to the upper quartile of the most safest plants in the European and Canadian and US world. And this is the fact, the 1st of January 2034 as well. So in fact, looking from safety perspective, we can continue operation. However, we have to prove from, for example, our safety report, how does the installation behave in the next 20 years? And that's what we have to prove. And yeah, I think, and that's what we can, and I expect, except for example, what was already mentioned, when you have to exchange big components, okay, yeah, then it's totally different. When we have to exchange the reactor vessel, there is no lifetime extension. Looking from regulatory perspective, there is a huge difference because introducing new regulation, for example, when I'm looking now at the license of 1972, that was 4 pages. First one, here is the license. Second one, the bill, and 2 recommendations, 2 pages of recommendation. Now it's 40 layers or 40 files of big. So and that's accumulating, and that's, I think, from long-term operation, from lifetime extension, more complicated than starting with that enormous regulation on a new build plant. I think that's the challenge we have to overcome. But I'm confident that technicians can always. I'm not a technician from background, and I'm so happy with technicians. They solve everything.
Okay, hello. My name is Peter Orme from Hungary. Sorry, I put more burden to Paul by questioning. You mentioned you revisit your backend strategy, looking at reprocessing versus direct disposal. But you didn't mention the very final step, which is a disposal. Whether you will insist on this 100 years storage, or can it be longer or shorter? And what will be the function of Habok facility? So what is the last step in your revisit your strategy?
Yeah, that's. I did mention that indeed. So in the Netherlands, we store the canisters, so the small volume of waste in the Habok building of Covra, which are canisters of this size, and we store them for 100 years. And then Covra is responsible for the final geological repository. In our evaluation, and that's what I didn't mention indeed, we also have sort of risk assessment. What's the difference between having one sort of waste or having 2 sorts of waste, mainly the canisters, meaning the canisters, and the big castors with fuel? And yeah, that's very, I think we are now starting the process with the government because we don't have regulation on storing spent fuel in casks in the Netherlands. We don't have a building, etc., etc. So from a risk perspective or from a regulation perspective, I think that's a negative aspect for switching to direct disposal. And of course, then Covra has to decide, yeah, what does that mean? And I think it's very difficult to create a final repository for vitrified waste in canisters, as for casters as well, in one big, so that will be very complicated. So that's what I didn't mention at all. From financial perspective, I think continuing with reprocessing is more beneficial than switching now at this moment to another way of doing the backend.
Sorry, I forgot the second part of my question. Do you rely on domestic solution or international shared solution?
You mean for geological disposal? Yeah, so at this moment it's not allowed to store waste in another country, but as a small country we are continuously working on cooperation in Europe or with other countries that we can find a sort of European solution, because looking at Belgium, so the clay layer on the Belgian border, on the Belgium-Dutch border, can be an opportunity for geological disposal. So that means that the Belgians start on one side of the border digging a hole, and we are the other side. So we meet each other somewhere. But that's a real, yeah. That's why regulation is not giving the freedom.
Yeah. Indeed, yes. For Belgium, there are 2 things maybe. First of all, we are already accepting waste from another country. Okay, it's a very small country, it's Luxembourg, and they only have waste from hospitals and things like that. But their waste is coming to us, to Belgium, and we will make sure it's finally disposed of in a surface repository. But yes, we are looking into cooperation with the Netherlands to see if we can go to shared solutions, maybe shared disposal. I think that's the holy grail, let's say, but also the most difficult to realize. But if we can already go to shared solutions, because there are a lot of different steps in your waste management process before you end up into a final repository, that might also already start, let's say, an alignment, for example, of even waste classification and things like that, because right now we have also different classes and different types of acceptance criteria for the different waste types. So.
Hello, my name is Aurélien Ballier from EasyMap company. You talked a bit bit about decommissioning, and we know that it's a costly process, and recycling raw material could be used to optimize this cost. Every country right now has its own regulation about that, and do you think that there could be some European framework to help countries to decide on that, or could you think that in the future there will be more recycling throughout Europe?
Okay, now you will first.
Thank you, Christophe. No, the NEA cannot speak on the behalf of the European framework. We're a wider membership than Europe, so I'm not sure who can really. You would like? Okay.
I will try. Okay, so again, we're talking about the waste management routes, as Jean-Christophe also said. As for LTO, you have your waste management system in terms of your final solution. So everything from waste types, the classification, the acceptance criteria is based on the solutions and the way that you have from going for the generation of waste until your final repository. So in that sense, optimizing this is dependent on all these intermediate steps that you have and the economic story behind it. In Belgium, waste is quite costly, so there is a natural incentive to look at economic optimization. And for example, also in Belgium, we don't know the very low-level waste category. It doesn't exist. So there is a kind of a gray zone between the free release, where the radionuclide levels are below the basic safety standards, and where you start with real low-level waste. And so this gray zone you can really exploit and try to optimize in terms of course, everything needs to be safe. There is always regulatory control over it. But you can really start to see, okay, if we, for example, we have done the exercise with the cutting of the biological shield of our BR3 reactor. If we cut it in certain ways, can we conditionally release all of the concrete instead of having it as a low-level waste stream? And we managed to do that, but the incentive is purely economic. Of course, you can think of a more, let's say, durability type of incentives that can also be given if it's in the legal framework that you need to maximize recycling. Of course, that gives another incentive, but then it comes to the legal framework. So it depends a bit on case by case, but I think there are indeed a lot of opportunities to optimize.
Hi, I'm Inigo. I'm from Young Generation Spain. My question was, I'm a PhD student, so I'm really interested in innovation and research. And I was wondering, what are the main technical, in this case, main technical issues regarding this deep geological repository and how to address those? I don't know if in the case of Marqueta with Surao, I don't know if you can tell us like the main challenges you are facing, the technical challenges you are facing for the project.
It's a good question, and I think it depends on each country, in which phase the country is in the preparation of the deep geological repository. In case of the Czech Republic, we are in the middle of the site selection process. It means that for us, the main challenge now it's the preparation of the geological survey and compare our 4 localities which we have now in a final selection for the selected, the final and the backup site for the future deep geological repository. But we are not only focusing on the siting of the repository, we are also preparing the technical solution, technical design of the repository. We are mainly focusing on the development of engineered barrier system. One of our big challenge is preparing of our waste disposal package for the spent nuclear fuel. In our case, we would like to develop our own solution for this waste disposal package. And we are also managing a lot of in-situ experiments in our underground research laboratory. And all of these things are really challenging, and it's really necessary for the future development of the technical solution. But I can believe that each of the country is in another phase and can have another problems and challenges in the different phases.
Maybe I can add, I have a question for you, you know, because when we speak about LTO, what I would say I have a dream, you know, we have a lot of data when we speak about our NPP, especially in France. We have a lot of sensors that are installed in our NPPs, so we get a lot of things about pressure, temperatures, and so on and so on. We also have a lot of maintenance reports, what is written. You know, people, when they open the valves, when they open the pumps, they see things, and they write it on the report. What we also have is our in-service inspection. We'll have a report, we'll have a filmography, UT, we'll also film with, I would say, visual inspection. So we have that data. And I would like to have in the future is how can I, you know, detect flows more precisely and more previously than I've done now. For example, in France, you know, we have a stress corrosion cracks. We find it with the in-service inspection. Maybe, I'm not sure, maybe we can find this with regarding all the data that we get from the sensor, all the data we get from the in-service inspection, all the data we get from the inspection. I think that we, as you mentioned, with intelligence, artificial intelligence, maybe we can do this. But you have to manage artificial intelligence. You have also to understand all the operation of the power plant. You also to manage everything about materials, everything about scientific. So you have to manage different things, and it's quite a different, difficult topic. So if I have what questions, if you can solve my problem, then you will be very welcome.
Add something. Thank you very much. Yeah. This question can be answered very simply with all due respect to the answer that were provided here, and all due respect to everyone. The NEA, and particularly the Radioactive Waste Management Committee, is providing an overall program of work for the expert from all its members to tackle the most challenging aspect of the DGR developments. So technically speaking, I presented earlier in the slides that are, I think, available on the app of Euratom. The integration group on the safety case is a working second-level working party reporting to the committee and defining itself program of works and mandates to sub-level expert groups. And I can briefly describe you. There are 3 expert groups dedicated to each type of host rocks. The DDRs are complex objects that aim to confine the radionuclides of the spent fuel for dozens and hundreds of thousands of years in different host rocks, and each of them have some challenges. The worst, I would say, media or substance with regard to those DGRs is the water, is the migration pathway. And so the water characterization, whatever in clay, or in crystalline rock or salt, is the most challenging aspect, scientifically speaking. And many R&D is being programmed and implemented with regard to that aspect. You can look on the RWMC website, there is a link. You can find the mandates of these expert groups, and you can read exactly what are the challenges. Those mandates are updated every 3 years, so they are cutting edge, the latest challenges that are subject to a consensus among the member organizations. And so, yeah, help yourself and have a look there.
Maybe if I can add something, if we are talking about the technical challenges, they are not only the technical challenges in the preparation of the deep geologic repository. I am thinking about the communication and the challenging transparent communication with the public and the public trust to the project of the Deep Geologic Repository, because this is also the key subject of the preparation of the Deep Geologic Repository, and you can be the best engineer and the world and have the best solution, technical solution. But if you are not able to have a trust from the public to your solution, it's nothing. You will not succeed with the best technical solution without the public trust into your project.
Yeah, thank you very much. As we know, waste, my name is Mustafa Saleh, a PhD student from Chalmers. So I enjoyed the options you've talked about on the management of the waste. As we know, nuclear waste management is a very key topic in this field. And this is very important in building public trust, as you just said here. So my question is that we know there's still debates on which cycle, is it the open cycle or the closed cycle? But I've not heard from this committee which is the best solution. Is it a deep geological repository or the recycling, or we need a combination of both? And what is the key important criteria in which we select the options? Is it depend on economic cost? Is it on the technology or the political reasons? So this is my question.
Okay. Thank you for that question. I can only give a very short answer on it. I'm looking for the conclusion on that question, because then the solution is easy. In our case, at this moment, we do not see the best solution. It's totally dependent on the situation you are in. And that's yeah, for example, 5 years ago, or even 3 years ago, the influence of the geopolitical situation on your fuel cycle was much less than it's now. So that it changed again the evaluation of the choice we have to make. So yeah, that's we are trying to find the answer on that question as well, but it takes time.
Yeah. This is certainly the case that geopolitics has changed the way how we look at the fuel cycle within Europe. Of course, what did I want to say? I don't think there is something, in choosing what is best or in choosing which option you have, it typically is also determined by what are the long-term vision that you have, where you want to go with nuclear. If you want to go towards, indeed, closing the cycle, I don't know if people realize it's not in a one true, or that you burn all your actinides or all the uranium and plutonium. It's really a lot of cycles are needed. You have to have then also the capacity to retract your fuel, again take the fissionable materials out of it, turn it into new fuel and things like that. So it requires. That's why I said it's also kind of a paradigm shift. If you go towards these Gen 4 technologies and to closing this cycle, you really have to have this long-term vision in order to do that. Now, that being said, you will always need a geological repository. That might sound strange, but in fact, what we see in DGRs, the actinides or minor actinides, from a long-term safety concern, they're the least of our worries. They are not the ones that are being mobilized or being transported in the water. These are the long-term fission products, which are determining the long-term safety. And these we will never be able to transmute. There have been some experiments in the past, but it's nearly impossible. There's also another aspect that you have to consider is, if you go towards such cycles, can we then optimize the repository? For example, if you take out actinides like actinium, which are like americium, which are one of the key radionuclides also for the long-term heat transfer from the waste towards the surrounding engineered barriers and to the groundwater. Maybe you can also work on this in order to optimize your repository. But these are, again, you add complexity into the story, and again, you add several steps that need to be taken in this long-term vision in order to come to this approach. But there will always be a deep geological repository, so whatever the approach you have, so there is no need to reconsider right now or to stop and start doing something else. It will always be an end story.
Okay, we are coming to the end of the session, and at the beginning of the session I missed to introduce the only person in the room who's been working all over the time, because the panelists got their shift, their turn, but Oli Sopela from VTT has been reporting all the session, and he will summarize the major ideas that we came up with during this session. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I tried to keep this very brief, but there was a lot of content, so doing my best. Well, we concluded that any nuclear energy life cycle management scenario will lead to waste management responsibilities. So if we go for the route of decommissioning, we still will have a lot of waste volume, and around half of the waste volumes come from the decommissioning phase. This will lead to needs for intermittent storage facilities, transportation arrangements, characterization and inventory of materials accompanied with reliable data management systems related to these decommissioning operations. If we choose to go for the lifetime extension route, both operation-related low and high-level waste volumes will increase. The chosen waste management strategies may have an impact on the generated waste types depending on the chosen waste management strategy. Is it fuel recycling or deep geological repository? The decision will impact the back-end infrastructure requirements. The LTO decisions will impact the back-end processes also depending on what is the status of the nuclear power plant project in question and what is the status of the waste management infrastructure in the specific country. Now we are seeing more and more focus on new build projects, innovation for generation reactors, etc. These new build projects also come with waste management facility requirements, and these long-term waste management infrastructure enjoys the least public acceptance, and thus public acceptance of these facilities is extremely important issue to consider very early in the new nuclear projects. The earlier we can think of waste minimization and long-term survey strategies, the easier it will be to sort out also the new types of waste issues coming along. International collaboration is essential to enable the deployment of globally best available practices. I think we are showing a very good example here of sharing that information. Many international projects ongoing are improving LTO and back-end safety. Development of diagnostics methods, simulation tools, material aging surveillance, structural integrity, monitoring fracture and fatigue issues, deployment, technical challenges of DGRs, third and fourth generation reactor fuel behavior, engineering barrier behavior, and digital safety case development are also research topics that we need to keep on working on. All these benefits from well-designed long-term data management and sharing practices, that if we cannot agree on everything, at least harmonizing the data management plans would be a very recommended idea. There are ongoing working groups discussing possibilities of international waste management practices. The stage looking and showing a very good example of this. Our challenges in the international harmonization of practices are related to how we classified the waste types, what are the acceptance criteria, what are the accepted waste minimization strategies, how we collect and store data about these issues, and also the geological differences in the different countries. So as a very key summary, there is still a lot to research, harmonize and collaborate, and a lot to learn together. Nevertheless, if we can make international waste repositories reality yet or not. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are at the end of this technical track, and I wouldn't ask you to leave before giving a phenomenal applause to all panelists here, and of course, Luis Enrique and Oli. Thank you very much for being here. Thanks to the public for staying with us 2 hours. And let's be back in 1 hour for the cocktail.
An applause for the moderators as well.